You alright, guys? Excuse the hair. My room is absolutely baking. I'm dripping with sweat, and it's awful. You know, I'm not one of these luxury people that in America that has air conditioning in their room, and it's horrible. And today's my day off, and I've enjoyed my day off. And I've not had time, not saying time to watch wrestling, but I keep an ear on the product. And by the way, before I do get onto this video, thank you ever so much for you guys. The 30 of you have hit the subscribe button so far and joined the Open Mic Night family. And I can't thank you enough. Because at the end of the day, I do enjoy talking about professional wrestling. But I've got to make money to pay the bills. So I hope you do understand that. Because I can't give you like what I first started here on this channel about giving you wrestling reviews. But I'll try as much as I can to bring you content as and when I can when I want to talk about professional wrestling. And today's my day off. I've got a bit of energy. I'm not exhausted from work. It's just the blistering heat that we've got here in Nottingham at the moment. But I just want to say to every one of you guys is, right, I'll be honest with you. I've kept tabs on the product. And I feel like, in a way, AEW, I'm blown away with what they've been doing recently. WWE, since my last review, I feel like how hard they have fallen. And I'm not being horrible or anything, but I feel like this is one of the roughest moments in my fandom of watching WWE since God knows how many years. I do catch up with the product, but I've been watching it solid nearly 40 years, and I feel like this is one of the roughest eras that we've seen in recent times. And this is me being honest with you, right, as a wrestling fan. This ain't me bashing WWE for the sake of it. This is bashing it for my fandom. And I want this company to succeed, considering they are losing profits left, right, and centre. You wonder why, And it worries me to the point where, why do people want to work for that company? I know this is harsh to admit, but why does people want to work for that company so badly? You look at Mariah May, yeah, she left a massive pay cut to go to WWE for NXT. But is she going to rip off Tony Storm's gimmick? Why is it every time when we get a new blonde in the company, they try that sort of blonde stereotypical gimmick? You tried it with Emma. When you tried to turn her Emelina. You tried it with Morgan when you first came in. Like to rebrand her. As a sass model. She was in the bathtub, semi-naked and so on. If not fully naked. But obviously we didn't see that on camera. I'm sick and tired of seeing this behaviour, let alone the name change. It's so drastic, it doesn't roll off my tongue that well. People may say, oh, she's doing it inspired by Marilyn Monroe. Or it's named after her niece. I don't care. If it doesn't sit well with me, it's not going to sit well with me. I know her as Mariah May. Fair enough, you didn't want to use her name. Just use her name closest to what she originally had, then people may like it, I'm not saying this in a bad light towards Mariah May, but you could have done so much more better. Alright? And that's me being honest. You took a massive pay cut to go to WWE, fair enough. Your lifelong dream to be in the WWE, you've got there. And look what they gave you. I felt so bad for her when she made her debut in NXT. Fair enough, she made that appearance. Wow, job well done. You did that well. But rushed, but you did it well. Then you look at the video vignette that she had last week. I didn't see anything this week because obviously I've been really busy. So I hope you can understand that. But it comes to my attention that when I look at the way WWE has fallen, now, what I mean by fallen might sound a bit harsh, but I feel like when I look at the current WWE product, it's 2025, right? Not 2005, not 2003, not anything like that. It's like 2025, right? You've got King and Queen, King of the Ring tournament going off. But it's the same faces that we see every time towards a title or something like that. You don't... This is the problem where I feel that WWE don't get lazy and they don't know how to make mega stars anymore. You know? Don't get me wrong, John Cena was a megastar and still is a megastar for WWE. He's a big name, but the problem where it lies, this is, yeah, fair enough, his retirement tour. But you look at the King and Queen of the Ring tournaments. That should be technically elevating the next young talent to the next level. If you're not going to do it with your mid-card titles with the Intercontinental Championship or the US Championship, you know, you need to do this to elevate them to that next level. To be the face of your company that can carry on for God knows how many years. I'm not saying the next 10 years because we don't know if it's still going to be around. Now that's worrying times to say that. To say they're $3 billion in debt and you can't build up your next stars. That's why you're relying on people that have been there, done it, got the t-shirt. That's why you're not This is the problem where it lies. Right? John Cena retirement tour has been always the OG wrestlers of your company. It hasn't been anyone new, fresh face. You know? You've got an opportunity you could have easily done. There's King and Queen tournaments that are going round, even the women's division one as well, prime example, right? But you are doing the faces that have been around for a long time. You know, look what you've relied on this past week. Gunther to get the title back of Jey Uso. What for? Oh yeah, just to face Goldberg in Atlanta, Saturday night main event. How's that going to sell you your tickets? Stop relying on part-timers. Let alone there's been no build for it. You know? Fans like myself do not want to see that in 2025. You know? It really frustrates me that these are meant to be prestigious titles of your company, the World title and the WWE title, and you technically don't know how to put a fresh face on that title. Yeah, you have main event Jey Uso, but it didn't last long. It fizzled quite quick, I feel. But you're not listening to your fans, but you claim you're listening to your fans, but it fizzled too quickly. You know, this is why I feel like it has a problem with the John Cena retirement tour, because you are too busy focusing around the OGs around that has been in your company for a long period of time, when you don't know how to build those future stars. You know, it worries me when I look back when we thought that Vince McMahon was going to use Austin Theory as a young talent to build around at one point. You know, and I feel like looking back at it now, I kind of regret he didn't have that opportunity. You know, he could have done so much well before we know. You look at LA Knight, what they're doing with him. He hasn't had a title for numerous of weeks now, if not months. Not even the main event picture. You're getting the same people that in your King and Queen tournaments that's meant to be going to get a title shot. Whoever wins that, is it at SummerSlam or is it going to be at... You know, it frustrates me. You know, I know it sounds daft, but you thought the moment where R-Truth cut his hair could have been a turning point for edgier content. And what did we get on SmackDown? Him beating down John Cena last week. You know? They've got the talent, but they don't know how to execute them. And it worries me when you've got a roster over 300 members. That's including male and female and tag teams. I'm not even getting onto the tag team picture yet. Because there's no freaking point. Because there doesn't seem like any decent tag team momentum going forward for that either. Same with the women's titles. It was like, okay. You look at Io Shirai. She finally showed her face last night. What was that all about? You know? You meant to be the champion of women's Raw champion. But then you look at what you are doing for the women's IC title, like Becky and Bayley. They've been around the company for a while. They don't need this accolade. You know? You're going to just brush off Lyra? Or you're going to build up towards a triple threat? You know, that's how it feels. These OGs do not need the accolade because the mid-card titles are meant to be building up the next big thing. And Lyra's done that, fair enough, but you've left the match 1-1. If you're building a triple threat or fatal three-way, whatever you want to class it as, okay, fair enough, you're building that. Does that mean Lyra wins that one and then settles the score with Becky again? You know, it really... How could this company be so bad at building future stars? And yet you are not even focused on your main titles. You're not focusing on your tag team titles. This is why I keep saying it. WWE's in that much of a mess. It's going to be hard to repair it. I'm not saying this because I'm an AEW fanboy. It's because I've been watching WWE since I was knee high. Longer than people probably have subscribed to me have been on live. And it really frustrates me when I see shit like this go down. That people are enjoying this shit. You know, it's been absolute trash recently. You know? It really... How can this big company be oozing in that much debt, let alone doing this? It baffles me to think that... Stop focusing on the faces that have been around your company for a while. It doesn't work anymore. You need that breakout star. You know? That it factor. You know Cody Rhodes has already been there, the it star, but you kind of fumbled that idea with the current climate. You know? Granted, people cheer and boo the good guys and the bad guys, etc., etc., etc. It doesn't mean that. No, I mean the people that line your pockets. You know? How come a few weeks ago, if not only 2 weeks ago, in fact, a guy that's not even had a match yet for numerous of weeks now, be number one merch seller? Because the fans are telling you there's a golden child right there, but you're fumbling him. You know? You're trying to program your fans who you like. Okay, fair enough, do that. But all I can say is, WWE, learn what your fans really like, not who you want them to like. You know, it frustrates me. It really does. Right? Considering this is my first initial break from wrestling altogether, not just AEW, not just WWE altogether, because I've been focused on work. But I've been keeping tabs on what's been going off, and I'm thinking, why are people still watching this? You know, it baffles me to think that people still can sit there, watch, and enjoy their current product. And it annoys me. It's annoying the hell out of me. You know, something needs to be done with WWE, and I mean it.